Hi, I'm Matt Dana, managing partner of Dana Whiting Law, and I'm joined today with my partner, Todd Smith. Todd, how are you?
Happy to be here, Matt.
So Todd and I have been together now for 15 years plus, and
It's been a while.
a lot of times that they don't see you as much. They see Mr. Trevor Whiting quite a bit, but I want everybody to know Todd Smith's an equal partner with Trevor Whiting, and it's good to have you here today. Big part of the firm and big part of our success. I wanted to talk today, Todd, about a topic I know you're very familiar with, and I wrote an article maybe 10 years ago about 3 tiers of estate planning. And I've always talked about tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. And, we've talked a lot about this since the election. So, Todd, what would you consider to be kind of a tier 1 estate planning type client? What do they look like?
Well, generally speaking, I think of just the core needs of an estate plan being, if we're trying to avoid probate or just making sure that our wishes are taken care of. I'd say usually you're talking about somebody that's got a house and retirement and some savings, but probably, I'd say net worth is going to be under $10 million, under the estate tax exemption amount, so that we're not really worried about at this point doing any advanced planning for estate tax purposes.
I think if you start talking about, this net worth of $500,000 to $1 million, that's where most people are. And we spend a lot of time in these videos talking about, tier 3, kind of higher net worth. And I think it's gotten a lot of our viewers thinking that's all we do. And, we've always said that we're a well-rounded estate planning firm. We certainly don't want to be snooty and turn our nose up to tier 1, because that's where it all belongs. Tier 3, Todd, that's kind of where the higher net worth kicks in, and I've always put tier 3 of maybe 25 million to 50 million. That's kind of what I'd put as a high net worth client. 25 million to 50 million, that's high net worth. And then I would put, the ultra high net worth is when you're over 50 million. But today I want to focus in on this kind of middle tier, tier 2, because in some ways I think tier 2 is the hardest area to plan for. As you know, in tier 1, no matter what happens to the federal exemption, whether it goes up or down or whatever it does, these people in tier 1 are going to be fine. Estate taxes are not an issue. They need to plan regardless. And the same thing can be said for tier 3. Is if your net worth is north of 35 million, does it really matter if the exemption is 14 million or 7 million? And I think I heard today from Mr. Trevor Whiting that the current tax bill that Trump is offering now is to put the exemption at 15 million. But if these guys are over 35, whether it's 15 or whether it's 7, they've got a problem. They've got to do something. But the guys in the middle here, the guys between say 10 million and 25 million, why is that so difficult to plan for?
I think a couple of reasons. One is, like you say, the laws could change again, and so they may be safe today, but they may not be safe tomorrow as far as from an estate tax standpoint. Something that I often tell what you're calling a tier 2 client, when we're done doing everything and we've done amendments to their trust or whatever planning, I usually always tell them, you're in a position where we got to keep our eye on this.
Yeah.
You need to come back and see me every once in a while, and we got to take a look at where things stand, because like you say, it's so difficult to plan.
What's the law going to be when they die?
Right.
And as you know, as time goes on, they've got potentially 2 things working against them. One, the size of their estate's going to go up.
That's right.
So they don't have a problem today, but tier 2 is looking at a potential problem in the future.
Right.
And with time, you could have a change in administration, you could have the exemption drop down. And so when I wrote this article, and if anybody wants it, send me an email and I'll be happy to share it with you. And it's probably on our website somewhere anyway, 3 tiers of estate planning. But in tier 2, when I said what I'm looking for in tier 2 is I'm looking for something that does give us some estate tax benefit, but it's not horribly expensive to create. It doesn't have an ongoing expensive administration, and it's somewhat flexible where it doesn't disrupt the life of a tier 2 client. Now, when you get in the extreme stuff that we get into, you're setting up irrevocable trust, you're setting up family limited partnerships, you're setting up some complexity, and that's needed there. But here in tier 2, we need something.
Yeah, the only other thing that I would add to that list, I would say, in tier 2, we probably don't want to take the same kinds of risks that we sometimes take with tier 3, where you're
risk with the IRS, right?
With the claims that you're making for the
Yeah.
IRS. Yeah, you might want to focus in on more kind of statutory, maybe, or like in the code.
Yeah.
Or just something that, like you say, isn't going to have this administrative burden and isn't going to be something that raises anybody's eyebrows.
Yeah, that's a good one to add to it. I mean, a lot of people think the law is black and white, right?
Right.
And they think these rules and these strategies are black and white. You start getting out there in tier 3, IRS isn't happy when you take a $100 million client and save $30 million of estate tax. So sure, you're taking risk. It's not that what we're doing is outside of what we believe is a reasonable position to take, but some of these strategies, there's not a specific code section you can point to that authorizes it. But you're saying in this tier 2 area, we do have specific code sections. So there's virtually no risk in a tier 2 client.
Yeah, and a good example of that, just to skip ahead a little bit, I always joke one of the strategies that we have for a tier 2 client is something called a QPRT.
What's a QPRT?
And I always joke the first letter of the QPRT is qualified, which means that the whole strategy is outlined in the tax code.
Yeah.
And so we estate planning attorneys, we're not inventing something, we're not testing something new on you. This is something that's not only blessed by the code, but it's actually set forth in the code.
Yeah.
And so qualified personal residence trust, it's kind of that tier 2 level of plan, in the sense that it does have some estate tax planning element to it, because what we're trying to do is take your personal residence out of your estate for estate tax purposes. But
you still get to live in it.
But you still get to live in it. So you get the benefit of, in the near term, living in your house just like you would have anyway, but you're giving away a future interest to your kids.
Yeah. So ultimately, when you die, the house is out of your estate for estate tax purposes, but you still get to live in it while you're going along. That fits all of our boxes on tier 2, right? It's code section, it's qualified. 2, there's really no burden to you. You still get to live in the house. 3, there's no maintenance costs at all. You set it up, it's a one and done.
The trust isn't filing a separate income tax return.
Yeah.
It's very easy to administer. It's going to sit on a shelf.
Yeah, and so you take some of these clients here. I'm looking out the window at Silverleaf here in Scottsdale and Greyhawk and these places. There's $10-20 million homes sitting up there on that mountain. A tier 2 guy could put that in a trust where he still has the right to live in the house and enjoy the house, but when he passes away, there's no estate tax on it. And so we can't go into a lot of depth on all these strategies, but I want to just kind of list out what tier 2 strategies are. I'm glad you mentioned the word qualified personal residence trust, QPRT. I think that's the perfect, and as well as I do, besides the estate tax benefit, what other benefit is a QPRT give you?
Well, there's an element of protection of the assets in that trust, so against creditor claims, because you've given away an interest in the house.
So if I'm in a car accident and I hit a busload of doctors going to the Mayo Clinic, I'm sued for $25 million. Can they take my house away?
What I'll say is that you've made it a lot harder for them.
Yeah, you never want to use an asset protection bulletproof, right?
Right.
But you have made it. You made it where it's probably very difficult, where they don't want to pursue that.
That's right.
So another tier 2 client strategy that I like to talk about, that's a big part of this, is life insurance. And I think sometimes life insurance, has an ugly name or an ugly reputation. And I'm one of these guys, as you know, that I wear 4 or 5 different professional hats, and I supported myself through college and law school selling life insurance. And I'm actually am a chartered life underwriter, CLU. So it's the highest designation you can get in life insurance. I understand life insurance as well as the next guy. And sometimes even I have a little bit of a bad taste for a lot of life insurance agents because, you know, to me they push product that maybe is not well suited. You know, they're trying to get that high cash value type product where they get higher commissions, and you know, maybe getting a 20-year term policy has some merit. But where I like life insurance in tier 2 is I don't need it for tax purposes. We already said you're below the exemptions and the estate tax isn't a problem. So I'm not buying it for that. But you've known me for the past 15 years and you've seen me up and you've seen me down. You've seen me in a lot of real estate, and you know, I'm dancing around the office when real estate's good, and I'm hiding from all the bankers when real estate's bad. And I've always made the statement, you know, there's good times to die and there's bad times to die. And if I would have died in, say, 2005, you know, the housing crisis, you know, my wife would have dug me up and killed me again, because almost every piece of real estate I had was upside down, and would have created this huge burden on her. And so even though I was flush with other assets, and even though I was making a good salary, if I would have died then, it'd been a huge problem. And so I'm a believer in this tier 2 is an area where you should have life insurance for different reasons. One, I like this idea to create liquidity for my spouse. Even though our net worth was good, she needed liquidity. I also like it where at some point, maybe I'll need it for estate tax purposes. Maybe I die and the exemption's down and there is an estate tax, so I like to have that. And I also like life insurance sometimes to equalize an inheritance. I had a client in here earlier where the husband had assets up here and the wife had assets down here, and the husband has kids from another marriage and wife has kids from another marriage, and husband's really wrestling, you know, when I die, I really want to take care of my wife and my kids both, but however I do it, somebody's going to be pissed off. And so, can I say that on camera? Pissed off? I guess it's okay. But you know, a way to solve that problem is say maybe, hey, when I die, I'm going to have all of my assets go to my wife. That's going to sell real well when she's nibbling on my ear a little bit, and have the life insurance go to my kids, right? You think that'll sell real well? Does your wife ever nibble on your ear a little bit?
Yeah, you lost me at nibbling on the ears.
Yeah. You know, you start talking about your will and your trust, that wife better start nibbling on your ear, right? But you see what I'm saying? Creating a couple of states.
Yeah, I think any situation where you can add liquidity, it solves a lot of problems.
Yeah.
And that's why I like it. Now, one question I'll ask you, because I get this all the time. Every client who's ever heard about life insurance always mentions to me that one of the things they like about it is it's tax-free.
Yeah.
So
you talked to me about that because I was going to ask you the question. You know, is life insurance, quote, tax-free?
Proceeds of life insurance, not income for income tax purposes, but the proceeds of a life insurance policy could be included in your estate for state tax purposes.
Now, would that be a kicker? You don't have an estate tax problem, but you buy this life insurance to create liquidity, and now you create an estate tax problem.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So how do you get around that?
So the most common way around that, and this is something that I think any good life insurance salesman should know about this and should be able to point their clients to an estate plan.
I like that word "should," but
because there is a tool. It's referred to as an ILIT in the industry. So irrevocable, LIT is life insurance trust, irrevocable life insurance trust, and the purpose of an ILIT is actually quite simple. You make it so that the proceeds go into this trust, and you make it so this trust is what we call a green box.
Yeah.
Which, if you've read any of our articles online, you know that a green box means it's out of the estate for estate tax purposes.
Hey, you get the best of both worlds now. No income tax, no estate tax.
And it's very common when you think about no matter how you feel about the estate tax, whether you really think this is a good way to get revenue from wealthy people, no matter how you feel about it, you know that it's going to punish some people that are just, they have a family business or a family farm where you're forcing it when one generation dies, you're forcing the family to sell the business just to be able to pay the tax. This strategy is a very common strategy to help that situation.
And there's no maintenance to it. You buy the policy in the trust, you pay the premium, and doesn't have to file separate income tax returns. It checks our boxes.
That's right. Low maintenance, low risk.
Yeah.
And
good tier 2.
That's right.
So the last one I want to talk about is a charitable trust, a CRUT, charitable remainder uni trust. And we've got separate videos on these CRUTs and these charitable trusts, but I find when you're in that tier 2, maybe charitable planning has a little bit more appeal to it. You don't have an estate tax problem now, you could have one in the future, but you could solve and make sure you don't have one in the future by doing some charitable planning. And with these charitable remainder trusts, you know that the thunder is you get to retain a stream of payments for the rest of your life. And all you're doing is you're promising when you die, if there's something left over, it goes to charity. And if you're willing to make that promise that if you die, something's left over for charity, that they'll give you some income tax deductions up front, they'll give you some tax deferral up front, and we know that there's a lot of bang for your buck there. But I put that in this kind of tier 3.
Yeah, especially the last thing you said there. There's some really good income tax planning with a charitable trust. So a lot of these tier 2 beneficiary or tier 2 clients might be facing a situation where they need to diversify an asset that has a low basis.
Yeah.
And this is a perfect solution for that.
Would you put anything else? I think, Todd, in my article, the 3 tiers, and in tier 2, those are the kind of the 3 things I put in there. Would you put anything else in a tier 2 client?
I think the main thing, other than those kind of tier 2 advanced strategies, I think that a tier 2 client also needs to pay a lot of attention on the revocable trust. It's probably not just going to be a cookie cutter trust.
Yeah.
There's going to be some issues that are a little bit more advanced than just splitting up the house.
Oh, I think that's very well said. You know, a typical revocable trust where you're never going to have an estate tax problem, no matter what the exemption is. You know, I say there's a lot of ways people can screw it up, and the client's not going to get hurt too bad. But on the other hand, if you're a tier 2 client where you could have a problem in the future, you screw it up, you could get hurt bad. I think that is very well said. A lot of our videos, we talk about the AB revocable trust, and you know, there's a lot of people out there promoting these things, cookie cutter versions, that they're not careful, they're going to get in trouble on them.
I think tier 2 clients are probably more, it becomes more important to be a little more customized.
Well, thanks for your time today. I think I learned a lot. Appreciate it. Have a good one.